Hello everybody and welcome back to a brand new video. Today I wanted to go over 10 mistakes that people will often make when they get into flipping. This video is going to be aimed at beginners or mistakes that beginners would be making. There are a whole number of mistakes that you can make at all different levels of flipping. These are going to be common mistakes you make in the beginning. Anyway guys, hope you enjoy and let's get started. Coming in number one, and is also probably one of the things I see the most, is being too focused on losing money. Now, obviously, the goal of flipping is to increase your wealth. However, being hyper-focused on not losing money is not very healthy in the beginning, especially. Making mistakes and losing money early on is part of learning and is pretty important, to be honest. No matter how lucky you are eventually going to lose money on flips, and it's much better to do that more frequently and more often in the beginning when you're not actually risking much money, over making those mistakes later when there's a lot more money on the line. Now, you shouldn't be worried about losing money. However, when you do, you should think critically on why it happened, if there's anything you can change to avoid that in the future, and if not, don't worry about it that much. I think in general, I probably lose money on 1/5 of every flip I do, so it's pretty common, and can be even more common depending on the type of items that you are doing. So just don't worry about it. Coming in at number 2 is spending too long finding flips. Now, there's nothing wrong with researching an item, finding the perfect price to put your offers in at, checking it often and whatnot. However, for some people, including me, that becomes too much of a burden and actually inhibits me from making more money. Sometimes I get home from work and I just don't put any offers in overnight because I feel like it's going to take too long. If you get into that mindset, we're going to spend like half an hour, 40 minutes just putting 8 offers into the Grand Exchange, you may not do it as frequently as you should. For example, if you spend 30 minutes putting in all 8 offer slots and you make 1 mil overnight, that's great. However, let's say you only have time to do that twice per week, where if you just spend 5 minutes, put in some offers quickly that you know are going to be decent enough. Let's say you make 500k overnight doing that, but you do it every single day, you'll make more or less 3.5 mil over the course of a week, which is going to be far greater. Now, that's kind of an oversimplification. However, I find it's a lot easier to get into a habit of putting offers in all the time if you don't spend as much time doing it. Coming in number 3 is asking other players for flips. Now, this is something that happens to me like all the time. Way too much, and I don't really know what to tell people. For one, I don't really want to give away items that I am currently flipping because that will reduce the margin or create too much competition. And 2, it just wouldn't really help that much anyway. Even if I just totally give them my item, don't flip it anymore and let them take it, that item will always be on an expiry date. It's kind of like that old proverb where you can give a man a fish and he'll eat for a day, or you can teach a man how to fish and he'll get 99 fishing. You're way better off finding your own flips, learning how to find profitable items, over heckling or bothering other people for their flips. It's just really not going to do you much good in the long run. Now, coming in at number 4 is starting out with high risk flips. Now, this is a mistake I see people do quite often. It can be very tempting to go for those high margin flips because they look flashy. It looks like people are making a lot more money doing that. However, what a lot of people don't realize is the risk on high margin items or rare items or new items, so brand new items that just came onto the Grand Exchange, the risk is way higher. So while those people could be making 2, 3, 4 mil margins on a single item, there's probably just as many people or more who are losing that amount on the exact same item. Now, this is very common of brand new items, so the release day or the day after an item comes out into the game, the price is uncertain and the margins are huge. However, once again, the risk is massive as well. Now, the same thing can be said for rare items or just items that are not traded much at all. For example, the Anku outfit can get 1 mil margins on it sometimes, but you can also lose money on it because the price goes up and down a lot because there's just not enough of volume to stabilize the price at all. Generally, when you are starting out flipping, you should be doing low risk stuff like flipping resource items, high volume items, or generally just more common in market flips. With these items, you have a much lower chance of losing your entire bankroll doing it. You probably could lose maximum 5 or 10%, which wouldn't be crippling, unlike other items where you could lose half of your entire cash stack if you're not careful. Coming in at number 5 is not being patient. Now, I believe this one was actually on my other video, but it is probably one of the most important lessons here. Patience is a key when you are flipping. Another very common question I get is, I've waited X amount of hours, should I take my offer out? Now, one thing to keep in mind here is your level of patience should change depending on the type of items you're doing. For example, if you're flipping death runes, patience might extend to 20 minutes, 30 minutes maybe, and at that point you may want to change something up. However, when it comes to rare items, patience could extend for days. What you want to do is employ the correct level of patience for the type of item that you are doing. There's no one universal answer telling you how long you should wait on an item for. That's really going to depend on the item itself. And that's when having experience flipping does come in handy, because you kind of know a general idea of how long items should take to buy or sell. However, as a general guideline, for the top 100 most traded items like high volume stuff, resource items, I wouldn't wait longer than half an hour. Now you definitely can, however, if you are actively flipping, you're waiting at the Grand Exchange, I wouldn't wait more than 20 minutes, 30 minutes. If you're flipping something like PVM gear or high margin item, if it's a common item, I probably still wouldn't wait more than 30 or 40 minutes. However, if you are flipping an extremely rare item, I've waited days for the item to come through, like 1 to 2 days sometimes. So really it's going to depend quite a bit. Coming in at number 6 is investing all of your money. Now, if you're sticking to high volume items or safe flips overall, there's nothing wrong with investing most of your money. You're not very likely to lose all of your money all at once, and there aren't any transactional fees or fees for taking your money out of investments or anything like that. So if you're sticking to safe margins, you can invest pretty much all your money. However, you shouldn't invest all of it. For example, if you are flipping on the side and all of a sudden you need a couple mil to rebuy your Fury that you lost somehow. How do you even lose items in this game? I don't really know. You dropped it on the ground for fun and you lost it. Now, if you have no money left in your bank, you'd have to take out a flip in progress, which might not be something you want to do. You might be cutting yourself short, losing out on a great margin, or just generally kind of messing with your entire Grand Exchange. Now, a more common piece of advice is don't invest all your money in something risky. Now, you probably shouldn't be flipping high risk items anyway if you are a beginner, but if you are, you should not be investing all of your money into that item. For example, if you had a billion GP, you should not invest everything into Dragon Hunter crossbows. That might pay off, but also it may not. Diversification is something that people always recommend in whatever marketplace you're in, and there's not anything really different about the old school RuneScape marketplace. Coming in at number 7 is flipping items with a 1 GP margin. Now this one is kind of debatable, but when you are starting out, you should be looking for items with more than a 1 GP margin. If you're free to play, that may not happen as frequently as it should. However, you're never going to make that much money if a margin is only 1 GP. For one, it's very common that the price could just go down on you. There's not much of a buffer zone. 2, if the item is cheap enough, a 1 GP margin may mean that your item will never come through, or it's going to take ages. For example, if you're buying like a maple log, yes, as a 1 GP margin, but so many people are going for that it will take ages for the item to come through. Like, could take overnight, days. It's just not going to be worth it. Yes, there are items that work pretty well with a 1 GP margin, but they have an extremely high buy-in limit. Even the maxed out buy-in limit in the game, which is 30,000, you're still not going to make over 30k from a single flip. If you only have like 4 or 5 mil to work with, you should not be investing all of your money into Zulrah scales. It's not going to be time efficient, and you're never going to make much money quickly going with that strategy. That being said, there's nothing inherently wrong with flipping an item that has a 1 GP margin. I just don't think it's very efficient. Coming in at number 8 is not subtracting a few items off of your buying limit. What I mean by this is if a buying limit is 10,000 and you go ahead and check the item's margin, so you buy one, reducing the potential that you can buy in the next 4 hours to 9,999. So what you do is you go ahead and put an offer in for 10,000 because that's the buy-in limit, and then 20 minutes later you buy 9,999. Now the problem with this is for most items you want to do another margin check at the end just to make sure the margin hasn't changed or it hasn't risen or anything like that. Unfortunately, since you bought 10,000 of them, you can no longer do a margin check, which means you'll be asking in MyCC for someone else to buy the item for you, which again is not a huge deal. However, in the future, there's no reason not to reduce the amount you're buying to maybe 9,995. That will give you a 2 or 3 or 4 item buffer, which means you won't have to ask people, log onto another account, or just guess. So the easiest way to do this is just put in your buying limit and just hit the -1 a few times. Now this is in relation to high volume items. For high margin items, you may not want to do this because the buying limit may only be 8 to begin with, and you don't need to actually do that. Okay, number 9 is extremely self-explanatory. Don't join a merging clan. I made a video on this a while ago, but I still occasionally get questions, or something that happens more commonly than that is people trying to subtly change my clan chat into a merging clan. I think it's kind of funny. There's so many people with different angles on trying to kind of subvertly trick me into not realizing it's a merging clan. So like, hey man, why don't we just all agree to, like, you know, buy this exact same item and that will increase the price or something like that. I don't know. And then we'll probably just sell it off at a higher price and everyone wins, right? Honestly, people tried this from so many different angles. Just don't. Anyway, that one's pretty self-explanatory. Just don't join a merchant clan. For one, it's against the game rules. 2, you're just going to get burned, and it's pretty unethical. And coming in at number 10 is having fun. Yeah, fucking right. Coming in at number 10 is knowing when to cut your losses. It's pretty important when flipping to realize when is a good time to back out. For example, if an item is tanking, you may want to just cut your losses, sell off your items, and call it quits. Now, there's really no universal way to show this. It just kind of comes from experience. Another good example of this is if you have a bunch of people battling over a certain margin. After a certain point, you just want to remove yourself, move on to something else, because it's just not going to be worth your time anymore. Number 10 is probably one of the most challenging things to learn, and probably is going to take you the longest time to get a feel for it. Again, the amount of time you may want to give this is going to depend on the volume of your item. In a lot of cases, it's better just to cut your losses, invest that money again, and you'll probably make that money back quicker than if you just wait and hope for the price to come back into profitability. Anyway, guys, that is it. Those are 10 common mistakes that beginners make while flipping. I have a lot more of these if you guys are interested. If you are, leave a comment down below or toss a like on the video. I would appreciate it. Thanks for watching, guys, and I will see you next time.